night, Chevra. Just wanted to talk for a few minutes about what's going on in the world, the coronavirus. It's well known. I think it was the Balatanya, one of the Admorim from Chabad, where they said, Rebbe, you have to live with the times. And I believe, again, it was Balatanya, he said, I live with the times. I live with with this Parshas Shavua, with the weekly Torah reading, the liturgical reading that we have in the synagogue. That's the most timely thing that we have in the world. So it's interesting that we're relating this week Mirz Hashem Parshas Vayikra, whether we're going to be reading in the Chumash at home. I have a Sefer Torah at home. I don't have a minyan, of course. But sometimes I'll take out the Sefer Torah just to make sure that I know how to practice laning, And we read about, excuse me, we read about the korbanos. We read about the sacrifices in the temple. Now, why are we reading about the sacrifices at this time? All right, it's in the calendar. That's what we're reading. There must be some connection to what's going on. So what's going on? What's going on is we have to realize right now we don't have the temple, right? We don't have the sacrifices. And so, therefore, we say, the prophet Hosea said, the Navi Hoshea said, the Shalom farms for Sena, and that the offerings of our lips come in the place of bulls. We're not bringing sacrifices physically, and so we pray. It should be considered as if we brought the sacrifices, right? We study Torah, and it's considered as if we brought the sacrifices. The Rebbe Shlita, who was diagnosed with the coronavirus, according to some reports I've heard. I haven't confirmed this or denied this or not. It's really nobody's business. But for the meantime, I'm davening for him, Rabbi Aaron ben Pesaleah. But he said, when this was all starting, we should say the Psalms. We should Tehillim, and he said that we should also recite the Pitim Ketores, the liturgy that we have of the incense offerings, and that this should be a skula. This should be something auspicious, charm to rectify this manner. The recitation of Psalms. We made a video about this. Recitation of Psalms. The Medrash says that King David prayed that when we recite the Psalms, it should be considered as if we're learning the laws of leprosy and the laws of corpses in a home, in a building, in an edifice. And that the meaning of that, based on what the Yismach Moshe teaches, and others from the Hasidic masters, that when we study about pain and suffering, based on what it says in Psalm 94, the happy is the man who God chastises and chastens, and from his Torah he studies, that it's enough that we learn about these things and fulfill with Torah study, and that's enough. We don't, and that's how we fulfill whatever guilt that we have that we're obligated to suffer. And so therefore, by praising God through the recitation of Psalms, we also fulfill that. It's not simply that that these tractates of the Mishnah are the most difficult. There are other difficult tractates. They are difficult, but there are others that are just as difficult, maybe more difficult. It doesn't say Eruvin and Yevamis. But for this reason, that it provides this rectification, and also that the recitation of the incense offerings comes in the place of actually offering the incense, which was designed also to mevriach the koiches hara, to chase away these negative forces, negative energies. And so too, like we said from the prophet Hosea, that if we use our words of Torah study and prayer, and so when we recite the Pitim Kataras, we recite the liturgy of the incense, it rectifies and protects us. It serves as a weapon in our arsenal. We need as much as we can. But when it comes to this aspect of Judaism, we have to recognize something. We should want very much to be offering the sacrifices. It's a fascinating thing. We know in the Haftarah read in the Shabbos Chazon, the first chapter of Isaiah, it says, Lama li raiv tivchechem. God says through the prophet Isaiah, why do I need all of your abundant sacrifices? They become a burden to me. In this week's Haftarah, which is also from Isaiah, chapter 40, chapter 42, 43, he says something slightly different. He said, I did not burden you with the sacrifices. Not that meaning Isaiah 1, he's saying that the sacrifices became a burden to God. But here Isaiah is saying that God says that he did not burden us with the sacrifices. I've heard many explanations, very beautiful explanations for this, but basically, we want to sum it up very simply. Why was the system of sacrifices, sometimes called the sacrificial cult, that's not a negative term there, why was it taken away from us? Well, because we took it for granted. This means of connecting to God that was supposed to be a means for us to develop a strong relationship with God, and for us to be in awe and feel the closeness and love of God by bringing a sacrifice in the temple. In the end, it just became just another thing we do. It stopped being special. It stopped being, we're coming up to Pesach, we read Shir Shirim, stop being romantic. And so God said, you know what? On one hand, from God's perspective, he said, what do I need this for? That became a burden for me. We really need to kill all these innocent animals if it's not accomplishing anything. On the other hand, there's something more. I said, I did not burden you with these sacrifices. Meaning to say, all right, we got to work on a relationship. Let's make it a little bit easier. We give you a little bit less to work on. Let's focus on something else for now. Prayer and Torah study. Let's try to develop a relationship through these mitzvot, through the tefillin. These things you had all along also. There's nothing new. It's just that we used to have 613 mitzvot we had to deal with. And now, if we're lucky, we have 150 maybe. Really, we talk about the 613. Most of those were in the temple. And the vast majority of those, including those in the temple, are only in the Holy Land. And so for us, a regular Jew in America, wherever else we live, we don't really encounter that many of the 613. And the message there is God saying, let's work on something else for now. This is therapy. This is, relationship therapy for a relationship with God. Let's take a break from the sacrifices. Let's take a break from these things, and let's focus on something else. And then, once we work on that, then maybe we could go back to the sacrificial system. And if someone dares to go up on the Temple Mount and tries to bring a sacrifice, they're committing a very grave sin for many reasons, not the least of which is that they're going to start a war and put us all in danger. And God set that up because that's how God wants it. We're not supposed to be going up in the temple bringing sacrifices right now. We have enough things to worry about. I remember in yeshiva, one of the guys, he was asking Rabbi Weinberger, should I put on tchelis? He said, if you're a ziner chosid, all right, but there's other things you can work on. Why are you focusing on this? If you do wear tchelis, it's fine. Many of my rebbeim wear tchelis. I personally don't, but many of my rebbeim do. At least two that I can think of, they wear it. But that's not the point that I'm making here. Both of those men, they've worked on a lot of things in their lives, so they're holding already by wearing tchelis. Maybe me, I don't know if I'm holding there yet. I have a lot of other things I've got to focus on for now. Let's work on these other things for now. And one of these is Breslover Chassid's. He's Breslover Chassid's. So Breslov, they've been wearing techelis for 100 years, Pretty much when Radzin started wearing techelis, the Polish are Radziner, so the Breslovers, who by that time it spread many different places. It was very small at the time, but many of them, they were wearing techelis for a long time. That's not the point that I'm making. The point I'm making is that there are other things to focus on. Let's are you even wearing tzitzis all the time? Before you start talking about techelis, and I'm just using it as an example. Don't take this so literally, what I'm saying. Understand the figurative nature of these words. Right now, God took away from us davening with a minyan, and then in other number of things, perhaps even. I'm not saying it's psak halacha right now, but I'm sure a lot of people are considering maybe whatever chumras they have Pesach, maybe to be a little bit mekel. And Rabbi Nachman, it's very interesting. He talks about this, Nachman Breslover, that when it comes to chumras, it's one thing to do something as long as it doesn't get you depressed. And, we have to be realistic on many levels, both on what we're able to do and also the mental health issues with it. Meaning on the other, we don't get depressed if you have to eat machine matzahs this year and only eat shmura matzahs. If you have to chveis, any other number of issues that you might have to be lenient about this year. Some people might not eat gebroks, maybe they're gonna have to eat gebroks. Some people not eat machine matzahs, they might have to eat machine matzahs. Some people don't eat kidneys, and they might have to eat kidneys. I'm hoping I'm not going to be any of those categories, but you never know. And if you have to, you have to. Maybe you're not gonna, do all the other chumras you usually do for Pesach. You're certainly not going to be selling your chametz to your Rav directly, making a kinyan. You're going to have to do it online. I already sold my chametz online. And that's what we're going to have to do. Even though every year we make it, and you can, after you sell online, you can still, if things get better, you can make a kinyan, but not, for now we're not making kinyanim, we're not signing, we're not doing anything else. We're doing everything online. This is what we have to do. The Siyam Erev Pesach, we're going to have to do online. Because that's what we do. That's what we're going to have to do. But, it's not the most important thing. And if we don't follow all the chumras of Pesach, it's not the end of the world. Maybe next year we could go back to them. Maybe this one year, maybe. And again, these are all examples. I'm not making a psak halacha for anybody, and don't take me so literally. The point I'm bringing out here is ideological and philosophical. That we have to look at this situation the same way that we looked at the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. That we have to focus on other things. That's the message that God is giving us right now. And so we're not davening with a minyan, but we're going to daven at home, and maybe let's try to focus and have a little bit more kavanah when we daven. And it's hard. We have other inyanim, whatever it is. But not only that, it's more than that, Those of us who are religious people, I'm talking right now, who are used to going to synagogue 3 times a day, if you're able to, right? Or used to going every Shabbos, or used to going whenever you're able to go. Used to maybe going to mikveh every day, and you can't do that. And all these things that we're used to doing, and now we can't. The message that God is saying is, maybe you've been taking all these things for granted, and you gotta appreciate these things. And the hope is that when we get all this stuff back, we're going to appreciate it more. Remember when I was a kid, here in the shul where I'm the assistant rabbi, they asked me to speak by their annual dinner of Lava Malka. And I said, when it's so difficult to make a minyan, because we live in a small rural community and it takes a lot of work, that every Yemen Yeheshmei Rabbah, that every Baruch, every Kedusha, every Kriyas Torah is so sweet. It's something you don't experience in Brooklyn, where you could take it for granted that you have a minyan every minute. You go to Shomer Shabbos, or you go to Landau's, or you go to Chvez and Muncie to Vishnitz and to Satmar and Monroe and whatever, and New Square. You're not gonna have to wait 5 minutes to daven mincha. There are probably 2 or 3 minyanim going on the same time, right? And now we can't. Now it's not happening. Because maybe we're taking it for granted. Maybe we're lazy. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe a million things. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying, what are we going to do now? How are we going to approach this now? Meaning, can we promise to God that when we get it back, we're going to appreciate it? We're going to treasure and cherish. We're going to taste the sweetness of an Amen Yesh Merabah, of a Baruch Hu, of a Kedusha, when we're allowed to do it again. So we're people of hope. And so on one hand, we're looking for restoration of our Amen Yesh Merabahs, and of our Kedushas and Baruch Hus, and of our mikveh, right? Beautiful. But let's not settle for that. When the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, he actually wrote it before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, but he was prophesying about the destruction that was coming. The Book of Lamentations, Megillas Eicha, how does it end? Hashivenu Hashem Elocha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Return us, O Lord, unto you, and we will return. Restore our days as of old. We talk of the good old days. Not just talking about the good old days when we could daven for the minyan. We're not just talking of the good old days when we could go to the mikveh. We're not just talking of the good old days when we could bring korbanos in the Beis Hamikdash. When we say Ashivenu Hashem Elocha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, we're saying Kekedem, like we say Ben Shever Brachas ve'Achasana Yitzircha b'Gan Eden Mikedem, when God made Adam and Eve. Mikedem, all the way back then. Meaning Adam Rishon Kodem Achet, before the original sin. That's the restoration we're looking for. That's what we're looking forward to. That's what's going to eventually happen. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually it's going to happen. I know a lot of people are excited and have eschatological frenzy. But, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the story goes that what supposedly is an authentic letter from him, although some historians even question that. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, we all know, in Chabad they sing, Hey Mosai Kosimar Likshiafutsu Mensecha Chutza. Right? When are you coming, sir? And the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh asked the Mashiach Tzidkenu, and he said, quoting from the book of Proverbs, when your well springs go out, that's when it's going to be. Everyone thinks that means that the ganze Welt got to learn the Hasidic Sfarim, that's when Mashiach is coming. No. You got to read the rest of what he said. He said that when people are able to make Aliyas Neshama, just like you, visit the Heichalos and this and that, that's what it's going to be. The thing is, I heard this from Rabbi Bar Tzadok. He recorded yesterday. It's important to listen to what he said. Right? We know what it says in Tehillim, and Medrash says, the Gemara says, when they asked Mashiach, when are you coming? He says, Hayom and B'kol Sishmao. He quoted the psalmist who said, today, if you listen to my voice, and if you listen to his voice, if you listen to God's voice, and Mashiach will come today. I was talking to one of my colleagues about eschatological frenzies that are going on, and people going crazy. Oh, this is it. This is the end times. This is Mashiach coming. This, that. Rabbi Bar Tzadok said very beautifully that Hayom and B'kol Sishmao doesn't mean the way everyone hears that. They think it means that, if Halavai, if everybody just kept Shabbos and Elmoli Shami Yisrael Shtei Shabbos Miyad Negoin V'chulu V'chulu. We think that it means just one Shabbos and we'll all be free. There's a realized eschatology that we ourselves can recognize the transcendent nature, how God transcends time, and that we are finding ourselves in a transcendent universe and connect to that transcendent nature of a Hayom and B'kol Sishmao, of Ilmolei Shama Yisrael Shtei Shabbos B'yad Negoin. The Geula, the redemption we're looking forward to, can be a personal redemption. We can enter ourselves. I don't mean in the eschatological greater sense that's going to come. But for ourselves, we can experience that realized eschatology, so to speak, of Hayom and B'kol Sishmao. That today we can, if we simply connect to the transcendent nature of Torah, we can recognize of Hayom and B'kol Sishmao. We can live a Mashiach Dikatzat now. The Lord Mashiach is anointed with oil. Oil rises to the top. If we are able to rise above all of this and recognize what's really going on and appreciate what we have and not take things for granted, and notice how wonderful it is that we get to spend time at home with our families, those of us who are blessed with families, instead of fighting and backbiting, to embrace the treasures of this time and to be able to rise above all the sadness and depression and instead look at what's positive and hear the voice of God. Hayom and B'kol Sishmao, today if you listen to his voice, and to be in that Indian of Ilmoli Shoma Yisrael Shtei Shabbos, of this Indian of Shmira Shabbos. What does it mean? Va'aviv Shomer es a davar. Lishmor, to keep Shabbos means to treasure, to cherish Shabbos. I heard that from Rabbi and David. He said that to treasure, to cherish the Shabbos. A Shomer Shabbos doesn't just mean the legalistic aspects, which are important. We have to keep halacha, of course. But it means a Shomer Shabbos, but Aviv Shomer as a davar. Shmira means that we find something precious and we treasure it. A Shomer Shabbos is not a legalistic Shomer Shabbos only, but it's someone who treasures and cherishes Shabbos. Someone who recognizes the beauty in things of just a normal, like Rabbi Weinberger said on the video, you can see on the Torah Anytime, of just an everyday, normal day, to be a mommy with your kids, to be a tati with your kids, and to cook. He said he read that poem from that lady in Yerushalayim from Baltimore, where she said, she cooked some hot dogs and French fries for her kids for lunch and this and that, and she said, "Thank you, Hashem, for just another normal, beautiful day." Because how many of us we go through and we have so many wonderful normal days, we don't appreciate them. That's what it means to be that inyan of Mashiach, the inyan of the oil, to rise above all the water, to go right to the top, and not to get mixed in, and to treasure and cherish these inyanim of just a normal day. This is what God, it seems, wants from us. And the thing is, the other thing that I'll say, and it'll be a little harsh here, just like there's a chi of kores, if somebody goes up into Har HaBayis and tries to be marker of a korban, their soul will be cut off. Those who go up to the Temple Mount and try to bring a sacrifice, since the temple has been destroyed and we're in a state of impurity and we don't have the ashes of the red heifer, v'chula, 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 etc., etc., etc. It's the same inyan right now. People who try to skirt the rules and not follow what we're supposed to be doing and try to do things we're not supposed to be doing right now. I'm talking from a state of halacha, to get together, make a minyan, do things like that, things we're not supposed to be doing. Just do what you got to do. You can daven at home and so forth, because that's what God wants from us right now. God doesn't want us to daven with a minyan, just like God doesn't want us to be makar of korbanos. Just like God didn't want, in the times when the temple stood, people to be making bamos, to have their own private altars and being makar of korbanos, and all throughout the book of Kings. They said, all these kings, they were so good, except one thing is they didn't get rid of the high places, the bamos. And then Hezekiah came and he got rid of them. And what did Rav Shakeh say to him? Oh, look, this is the guy you think God's going to protect you because look what he did to God. He destroyed all those high places that were all worshiping God. They weren't for idol worship. They were worshiping God. And Rav Shakeh called out and said, this Hezekiah, he's a bad guy. He got rid of all the high places. That's what we're dealing with now. Someone who's trying to make a minyan or is complaining the Rabbanim is saying, don't make a minyan, this and that, and not following just common sense. It's just like in the book of Kings, that Rav Shakeh, who was an enemy, some say he was a mummer, that he was Yisrael mummer. That's what a lot of the Mefarshim say, that he was a renegade Jew. And that he was fighting against King Hezekiah, and he joined with the Assyrians to fight against Hezekiah, to fight against Chizkiyahu Melech. It's the same type of inyan. You're building a bama. You're building a high place, and you're being makar of a korban on the bama. And you're bringing a sacrifice on the bama. You're piling a sin on top of a sin when you think you're doing a mitzvah. There's no mitzvah in doing that. The mitzvah right now is you daven at home. And you appreciate that. And you treasure that. And then if we work on that, God in his mercy will restore us, that we'll be able to go back to our shuls and daven and shul with a minyan once again. When we learn to treasure these things and appreciate them and not take them for granted, that's when we'll get it back. And that's what we have to work on right now. And again, it's not only the davening in the shul. It's the korbanos in the Beis Hamikdash. Are we going to appreciate that when we get it back, or is that also going to be a waste of time? Of lama li rebs of chechem? Why do I need all these sacrifices? If we're just going to go back to that, we don't need the sacrifices anymore. And if we're just going to go back to taking davening and shul for granted, we don't need that anymore. Until we learn that lesson, we're not going to get it back. But if we learn the lesson, we'll get it back. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And that's why we have here. But God is in His mercy. He's saying, I'm not burdening you right now with the sacrifices. I'm not burdening you right now with davening with a minyan. I'm not burdening you with anything else. Let's keep things simple right now. Let's just do things in a simple way and just connect to God. Because you got so wrapped up with everything, you don't see the forest through the trees. You forgot, why do we do all these things? What's this all about? Someone's saying to me, if they close the houses of worship, where are people going to find their hope and their comfort? And the answer has to be, you got to find it inside. The Baal Shem Tov always said, Shvisi Hashem Lanegdi Samid, when it says in Psalm 16, I set the Lord before me always, that word Shvisi means hishtashvus. It means equanimity. It means that we recognize only one God, and so everything that happens is that total unity from God. So there's no difference if you're eating something and tastes sweet or it tastes bitter. It should all be the same. It's interesting. I just heard today, my wife told me, I'd never heard this before, that one of the symptoms of the coronavirus is that you can't taste food. And so it's that same message. You can't taste. It's all the same. There's no difference. Sweet, bitter, light, dark, cold, hot. It's all the same. Because only one God. And so if we can have what, my friend Rabbi Nachum Zakkai from Long Beach, he told us, I remember in yeshiva, he said by Shalashudis once, he said, there's different types of people in the world. He said, for some people, the shul is their whole world, right? The shul is the whole world, meaning they go to shul, it's a social club. What's she wearing? What's new with the stock market? There's the one guy at shul who watches TV on Shabbos. Will he tell me by Mincha if the Mets won or not?
Always play NES games.
Will he tell me if the Mets won or not? Because I'm not watching TV, but I know this guy is. That's what goes in, and that's when they go to shul. And there's a goodness in that, because there's beauty in the community. Sure.
A bunch
of that.
I want to make a picture of all
that feeling of achrayus, the community. That they were there for me when I had to say Kaddish. I'll be there for them when they had to say Kaddish. It's beautiful.
Sounds good.
It's not a negative thing.
Sounds really good.
But there has to be more. But so like Rabbi Zakkai said to us, he said, so there's some people, the shul is their whole world, and other people, the whole world is their shul. And picking up an apple in the supermarket is as much of a spiritual experience as making a pilgrimage to some holy place, kissing the walls of the Koisel. If you're a person who goes to the Koisel, that's the example he gave. You're going to see an of a tzaddik, and that spirituality that's there, and that feeling and that excitement. You can have that same excitement like Rabbi Victor Miller taught about an apple or a watermelon or whatever else, and you pick it up and look how beautiful it is. This is a love letter from God. And to experience that, and to treasure that, and to live like that, that's what God wants from us right now. That the whole world should be our shul. When the whole world's a shul, then we can go back to shul. Because that's what God wants from us right now. That we should experience that right now. And then we can go back to the way things used to be. And it'll be better. And like we said before, it's not just that we're restoring going to shul again. Not just that we're restoring going to mikveh again. Not just that we're restoring the Beis Hamikdash and bringing korbanos again. Not just that we're restoring the learning yeshiva, whatever it is. Not just we're restoring all these things. but that we're restoring. Like Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu Navi prayed, like we said before, that we're asking God to return to us, and we'll return, and we ask God He should renew our days, kikadam, like in the old days, means before the original sin. That's the real old days, the tikkun hasholim. And if we work on that in ourselves, and enough people are like that, maybe the whole world will be changed. And we'll be back to there. But let's right now work on it with ourselves, our families, try to find peace of mind. Koblentzer Rebbe is asking that everyone should make a Kabbalah upon themselves, some kind of a good resolution. There'll be an email going out with an email address where you can send resolutions and put you on a kvittel. We'll send the kvittel to Zidichoiv, to Parshas Zidichoiver, who, when there was a cholera epidemic, he put his hand on the mezuzah. He said, "Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm ready to give my life as an atonement for the whole Klal Yisrael." And what happened? He died, and the cholera epidemic ended, because everybody was so sad that the terrorists fee, Parshas Zidichover, was weg from the Welt. Everyone had to hear a tshuva. I don't know if there's any tzaddikim like that the whole world are going to feel like that we could do like that, and we don't want it. We don't want anybody to die. We don't want anybody to suffer. We want this to be peaceful. So let's work on it ourselves so that nobody has to die. Nobody has to suffer. Let's embrace these things and embrace the beauty of our lives and try to find inner peace and try to rise above all this pain and suffering. And certainly we have Rahmanis, and we're praying for the people who are suffering, the people who actually have this disease. Doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter how young they are, that's not the issue. We have to have compassion on every individual human being. And certainly to feel the pain of the loneliness of people who are totally isolated and don't have families. We have to have compassion on them and reach out to them and love them and care them and give them a phone call and make sure everything's okay. And if they need something, try our best and do things like that. Of course, we have to pray for those who are suffering. But let's try to find that inner peace and rise above all these things. And then we can have, like a friend of mine said, a realized eschatology. Don't worry about all the supernatural big show, the special effects that we're looking forward to, everything changing. It's going to happen someday, but let's not worry about that right now. Don't get obsessed in a healthy way with eschatology. Let's work on ourselves. Let's work on the society. And let's look at how good things are, how blessed we are to live in this time. Not only with what we're dealing with, but that we live in a time when we have the technology that I believe God blessed us with, that we're able to get the word out of how to deal with these things and save lives, and things are not as bad as they were in other epidemic times. We should, if we get through this and everything's okay and things go back to normal soon, we don't have to feel like, oh, maybe we wasted this time. No, it wasn't a waste of time. We have to encourage ourselves, although we mourn for those who have died. Look at how many lives we saved because we did the right thing. It's an incredible thing. We should feel proud of ourselves. That should bring us so much joy. That should bring us so much happiness and bring more faith into our lives. It's so beautiful. We think of the sacrifices that our ancestors made in World War II in America and everything. This is our patriotic duty right now. We're fighting a war right now. And it's such an easy war. It's such a beautiful, easy war. We're sitting with most of us. Of course, there are those who are suffering. But the vast majority of us, we're sitting in our homes with our family, enjoying each other's company. Yeah, sometimes we get on each other's nerves, and we got to work on that. And we shouldn't let it happen. When we connect to these things, recognize then that energy and that healing and all and so forth, we're doing something incredible. We have to appreciate that and be thankful for the opportunity to do something so simple. Rabbi Kaplan, Zechat Tzaddik Livrocha, he talked about when it comes to keeping Shabbos, just by sitting there, you're doing the mitzvah of keeping Shabbos. And can you imagine what we're doing right now, that we're not davening for minyan, Like the story of the Rebbe Melech, the Rebbe Zisha, they were in the jail and there was a chamber pot, and the Rebbe Zisha was crying because he couldn't daven. The Rebbe Melech said, no, just the opposite. You don't have to daven. You're fulfilling the halacha right now by not davening. And he was so happy, and he danced with the chamber pot, and then they cleaned it out, and he was able to daven again. And he said, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the same Hashem that I was serving by not davening, because the chamber pot was there, is the same Hashem who I'm serving by davening now that it's clean. Same thing here. We're davening. We're davening 3 times a day. And Mirza Hashem Thursday we'll daven the 4th time. And tomorrow's every Chodesh we should say the Yom Kippur Katan, and those maybe who can fast, maybe fast half a day. I don't know how wise it is. Everyone has to recognize and use common sense with that. But to say the tefillas of Yom Kippur Katan or Slichas, whatever you have, my holy Zayda, the Chavas Yor brings from his father prayers that he had personally composed as a Rav and as a father and as a husband. That he said every Rosh Chodesh that he davened for his wife and for his children. He thanked God for his wife, and he davened that he should be successful as a rabbi and teach the right things, and this is the way that our ancestors lived, with that type of a constant prayer to God and that recognition. And so if you have the Sefer Chavos Yor, maybe look at that. It's in the back. The tefillah for Rosh Chodesh was a personal tefillah. Maybe you can compose your own personal tefillah in addition to the traditional Yom Kippur Katan or whatever it is, or whatever you want to say, or whatever Tehillim, whatever. It doesn't matter. This is not a halachic obligation. This is a suggestion. It's a nice thing to do. This is one of those types of things that we can use to make that connection. But what Ari Kaplan said is that when you're just sitting and keeping Shabbos, you're fulfilling the mitzvah of Shabbos. And so when we're sitting in our homes and we're not going to Minyan, we're doing something much bigger than we would if we went to Minyan. We look up to the Hatzalah mention who go and they saving people's lives at all costs, right? Doesn't matter, Shabbos, Yom Kippur, so forth. They get in their ambulance and they rush through and they're there before anyone else is there, and they're saving lives. And it's really hard. I don't think I could run like they could. I don't think I could do what they do. And look at us. We're just sitting here. And just by sitting here, we're saving people's lives. It's an incredible thing. Just by sitting and not going out, not going into groups. You have to go one-on-one to talk to people. Small, it's a different story. But not to go together, minyanim and things. It's an incredible thing. Just sitting here, mamish doing nothing. And we can sit and learn. We don't have to do nothing. We shouldn't do nothing. We should be learning Torah and davening, of course, and saying Tehillim and all these things. And working all the things. Mamish, just by sitting here, we're saving people's lives. Hatzolos nefashos. We're doing our patriotic duty and our religious duty. It's an incredible thing that should fill us with so much joy and hope. Don't be depressed. Don't be sad. Don't be scared. Be so happy for what you're doing now. It's an incredible thing. And so we have to thank God for this time, this precious time that He gave us, this precious gift that He gave us. We should be Zaycha, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That was the Chanukas HaMizbeach. That was the Chanukas HaMishkan. People, they have the minhag of saying the Nesiim and so forth. And if you have that minhag, it's good. If not, you want to do it, it's also good. It's such a hopeful time. Chodesh Mekifus B'Yeshuos. Even if it's not on the national level, it's on our personal level. To appreciate. Rabbi Weinberger said something about every Shachris Mincha Marav during this and should be like Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. He brought from the Svarma Kedoshim. A gewaltige Zach. Not in a depressed way, not in a sad way, but there's so much joy. So we should all be zoichet to embrace these lessons, to recognize why are we learning Parshas Vayikra right now. Yavoy Taharim Yaska B'Taharis. Yavoy Kedoshim Yaska B'Kedusha. B'Kodeshim. The little children, when they start to learn Chumash, they learn Sefer Vayikra. It's an old minhag from the time of Chazal. We're going back to the same Indian of being little children. A little child appreciates everything. It's so amazing. You see a little kid and his eyes light up when he sees something. You give him some little cookie or something, and he's so happy because it's so new and exciting, and he wants to learn. And that's where we're entering into that world of Sefer Vayikra. We have to embrace that excitement, like we're little children. Like Rabbi Nachman taught that you should daven with the simplicity of a small child, but that simplicity also means the excitement. So let's embrace that. Let's do the most we can. We should be zeiche taka des galus kvoid shemayim. Nigla kvoid Hashem v'rochel b'asar yachdav, to the revelation of the Shechina and the revelation of the glory of heaven. Nigla kvoid Hashem, and the glory of the Lord will be revealed. V'rochel b'asar yachdav, and all flesh will see it together. Like the Rebbe Melech said, that when we're all together, that's when we'll all see it. To connect, we might be basar, we might be fleshy people, we're not such tzaddikim, but we're all chol basar yachtav. When we're together, the whole Klal Yisrael is together, and the whole world's together, and we're all connected to tzaddikim who understand this. By having this chabras to tzaddikim, then it's menigla k'void Hashem. Then the revelation of God will be we're all chol basar yachtav, and the whole, and that's what he said, Parshas boy from the Parshas Chodesh we just read. And that's chus that we're all chol basar yachtav. Then we're all going to see together the glory of God. And the whole earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the seas. That whole earth, again, is the artsius. Even though eventually it's going to be the whole earth. That's going to happen someday. But in the meantime, our own earthiness can also be covered with the knowledge of God, the way the waters cover the seas. And it'll purify us with the same tahara of the oceans, the tahara of the mikveh. We should be zoichet to all of these great things. Hayom and b'kolos hashmo. Today, if you're only going to listen to God's voice, it should be for us personally, and it should be for us nationally, and for universally, for the whole world, and for all the worlds. They're all going to have a tremendous tikkun when this happens. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. Take care. I hope that's